If you walk into like almost any pharmacy in the world, there is this massive multi-billion-dollar aisle that is just built entirely on telling you that your body is dirty.
Oh, yeah. The feminine hygiene aisle. It's
Yeah.
everywhere.
Right. And we are talking shelves upon shelves of scented washes, intimate wipes, deodorizing sprays, douches, all of it promising to give you this, impossible standard of absolute freshness.
Freshness, like you're a spring breeze or something.
Exactly. But what if the very products you're buying to feel clean are the actual biological cause of the irritation, the recurrent infections, and that chronic painful dryness you might be experiencing?
That is the big question. It really is.
Yeah, so our mission today in this deep dive is to answer a highly specific and honestly crucial question. Can the obsessive, overfrequent use of internal hygiene wipes or sprays actually create an artificial state of dryness in structurally normal tissue?
Which is a question that completely upends, decades of marketing. Because treating that area of the body like a dirty kitchen counter that needs to be scrubbed is fundamentally flawed.
Totally.
To understand how these products cause such profound harm, we have to look at the brilliant, self-regulating ecosystem of the female body. And the absolute most important first step for you as the listener is drawing a hard biological line between the inside and the outside.
Right, because they are completely different worlds. So let's start with the inside, the vagina. For years, the go-to analogy people have used is that it's a self-cleaning oven.
Yeah, you hear that one all the time in clinics.
And while I get what they're going for, it always felt a bit, mechanical, like an oven is dead space. What we are actually looking at is closer to a highly engineered, dynamic river system.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. It relies on a continuous directional flow. The glands in the cervix produce mucus, which we, often casually dismiss as just discharge.
Right. People think discharge is bad.
Exactly. But that fluid physically carries away dead cells, foreign material, bacteria. It does not need your help to sweep the floor, so to speak.
It doesn't. It is a profoundly active environment. And the engine driving that river system is the microbiome. So the pH of a healthy vagina is mildly acidic, sitting in that very specific pocket between 3.8 and 4.5.
Which is pretty acidic.
It is. And that acidity is not an accident, and it's not something your body just, passively happens to be. It is carefully manufactured by a thriving population of good bacteria.
The lactobacilli, right.
Yes. Specifically, the stars of the show are Lactobacillus crispatus and L. inners. These bacteria actually consume sugars and excrete lactic acid. That acid mantle is your primary defense mechanism against outside pathogens.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because if it is this perfectly balanced river system and it has this localized army of good bacteria keeping everything acidic and protected, why do we have an entire aisle dedicated to fixing it?
Marketing.
Right. It feels like we're looking at a thriving natural rainforest. It has its own natural state, its own moisture, its own balanced ecosystem. But societal pressure expects it to be, a sterile concrete room that smells like synthetic lavender.
Yeah, that is the exact tension we're exploring today. Because when you try to turn a complex rainforest ecosystem into a sterile, tiled room, you don't just achieve clean, you achieve structural collapse.
Wow. Structural collapse. Which brings us directly to the focal point of the deep dive. Overwashing, douching, and using scented wipes or sprays inside the vagina actively creates an artificial state of dryness.
In tissue that was perfectly normal and healthy just 5 minutes prior.
Exactly. You are manufacturing the very problem you think you're solving.
You really are. And the chemical sabotage happening at a cellular level is staggering. So the vaginal epithelium, which is the tissue lining the inside of the canal, is estimated to be 3 to 5 times more permeable than the skin on your arm.
3 to 5 times.
Yes. It is incredibly delicate, and it's richly vascularized, meaning there's a massive blood supply right beneath the surface. So imagine taking aggressive surfactants like SLS or SLES and just wiping them on that delicate tissue.
Okay, we should probably clarify what SLS and SLES actually are, because if you look, they are on the back of almost every bottle in that pharmacy aisle.
Oh, they're everywhere.
Yeah, sodium lauryl sulfate. These are essentially cheap foaming agents. They are the exact same chemicals that make your dish soak lather up and cut through heavy grease on a frying pan.
Precisely. They're designed to aggressively bind to oils and rip them away. So when you put that inside the highly permeable vaginal canal, or you use products containing alcohol or daily antiseptics, you violently strip away the lipid barrier of that mucosa.
Yikes.
Yeah. And this triggers what dermatologists call severe transepidermal water loss.
Which basically means water is just evaporating straight out through the skin layers.
Yes, the tissue simply cannot hold on to its moisture anymore. The proteins in the skin literally begin to denature or, break down. And because you are using an antiseptic or a harsh soap, you're simultaneously massacring those protective lactobacilli we just talked about.
So you've stripped the moisture, you've killed the good bacteria, and now the pH spikes. It becomes less acidic.
Right. And that initiates a brutal, vicious cycle. Roughly 75% of women will experience bacterial vaginosis or a yeast infection, like candida, at some point in their lifetime.
That is a huge percentage.
It is. And a leading cause of that dysbiosis is this exact chemical routine. The hostile, dry, less acidic environment you just created by trying to be, quote-unquote, clean actually rolls out the red carpet for harmful bacteria and yeast to overgrow.
And then that overgrowth causes odor, itching, severe discomfort.
Exactly.
And what do you do when you feel that discomfort? You run right back to the pharmacy and buy more hygiene products to try and scrub the problem away.
It's completely self-perpetuating.
It really is. So we need to run down the absolute blacklist of ingredients and habits you need to avoid internally. First up, synthetic fragrances. This is a massive one, right? Synthetic fragrances are the leading cause of intimate contact dermatitis. Your body does not want a chemically engineered flower bomb inside of it.
No, it definitely doesn't.
Second on the list, parabens. You find these in a lot of commercial lubricants.
Right, and parabens are particularly concerning because they act as weak xenoestrogens.
Okay, let's break that down for the listener because that's a big word. A xenoestrogen is basically a chemical imposter.
Yes, exactly.
It mimics the structure of real estrogen in your body. So when it enters your system, it can bind to your hormone receptors and just completely confuse your cellular communication.
It disrupts the local hormonal environment, which is literally the last thing you want to do.
Yeah. And finally, on the blacklist, we have to talk about douching.
Oh, please.
There is a global unified consensus from OBGYN societies that flushing the vaginal canal with water or chemical solutions is strongly discouraged.
Strongly. It violently washes out the normal balance of bacteria. It's directly linked to an increased risk of pelvic inflammatory disease and even ectopic pregnancies.
Wow.
It is unequivocally the most disruptive thing you can do to that internal ecosystem.
So the message is incredibly clear. The inside, the vagina, should be left entirely alone. The internal directional flow does the heavy lifting for you.
Right.
But, stepping out of the rainforest for a second, that leaves a huge question about the outside, the vulva, because the rules there are entirely different.
They are completely different because the anatomy is completely different. The vulva is the external genital area. And unlike the inside, it does not have a directional fluid flow to naturally whisk away secretions.
Right, there's no internal river out there.
Exactly. It contains a wide variety of glands, specifically sebaceous and apocrine glands. These are actually very similar to the sweat glands you have under your arms.
Interesting.
Yeah, so throughout a normal day, the vulva is exposed to sweat, urine, menstrual blood, natural vaginal discharge, and concentrated oils.
Okay, so here is where it gets really fascinating. The old school advice, even advice handed out by a lot of really well-meaning doctors, has always been to only use plain water to wash the external vulva.
Oh, the water-only myth, yes.
Right. But let me ask you, would you ever splash a handful of plain water under your armpits after a really heavy gym workout and confidently declare them clean?
No.
Never. Of course not. Sweat and oils are stubborn. They require something to actually break them down.
And this is where a groundbreaking 2025 healthcare review by Bobot and colleagues completely shifts our understanding.
Okay, let's get into this review.
They looked at the dermatologic evidence and directly challenged this water-alone myth. It turns out water evaporates more readily from the vulva than from nearby tissues.
Wait, really?
Yes, when you repeatedly rinse the vulva with just water, you actually wash away the essential surface lipids. You are inadvertently increasing that transepidermal water loss we talked about, leading to profound dehydration of the vulvar skin barrier.
Wait, I really want to emphasize this for the listener. Just using water too frequently can actually cause external dryness.
Yes, it can. Water is a solvent. Overusing it strips the protective oils.
That is wild.
It is. But before anyone reaches for a bar of soap, the review is very careful to note that traditional soaps are catastrophic for this tissue. Traditional bar soaps are highly alkaline. They usually sit at a pH of 9 or even higher.
And the skin down there wants to be slightly acidic, like around a 4 or 5.
Exactly. So when you put a highly alkaline soap on acidic vulvar skin, It literally blows up the stratum corneum.
Okay, the stratum corneum being the delicate outermost layer of the skin. So think of it like a brick and mortar wall keeping the bad stuff out and the moisture in. Alkaline soap basically just dissolves the mortar.
It dissolves the mortar, elevates the pH, and denatures the proteins. So water alone dehydrates you, and traditional soap destroys your barrier.
Which feels like a total catch-22. So what on earth is the actual solution for the outside?
Modern dermatologists are now pointing specifically to what are called syndic cleansers.
Okay, stop right there. Syndit stands for synthetic detergent.
Yes, it does.
I am putting myself in the shoes of the listener right now, and you are telling me that a quote-unquote synthetic detergent is better for my most delicate skin than natural water. That sounds completely backward. It sounds like industrial tire cleaner. How does a synthetic chemical not burn the tissue?
It's such a great question, and I know it sounds scary, but it comes down to electrical charges at the molecular level. Syndic cleansers are formulated with amphoteric or non-ionic surfactants.
Let's translate that out of chemistry speak.
Right, sorry. So traditional soap molecules act like tiny aggressive magnets. They have strong electrical charges that rip dirt off the skin, but they also rip apart the skin's natural proteins in the process.
Okay.
Amphoteric and non-ionic basically mean these specific cleansers are electrically neutral or balanced. They don't carry that aggressive charge.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they gently coax the sweat, oils, and cellular debris away without tearing down your skin's structural wall. And crucially, they're formulated to be low pH and completely fragrance-free. Many even have emollient properties, meaning they leave behind soothing moisture without disrupting the local microbiome.
Okay, that makes perfect sense when you put it like that. So to recap the washing rules, absolutely nothing inside. Outside, you want a gentle, low pH, fragrance-free Syndic cleanser used just once a day to lift the oils and protect the outer barrier.
Spot on.
But this deep dive also uncovered some hidden everyday habits that you might be doing right now that are secretly drying out or disrupting your tissue. Starting with a phenomenon clinicians call the greenhouse effect.
Oh, this is a major chronic issue with daily panty liners.
It is so common, so many people wear them every single day just to feel a sense of dryness. But think about what you are actually doing. You are taking a non-breathable synthetic shield and trapping heat and moisture directly against the vulvar tissue for hours on end.
That's terrible for the skin.
You are creating a localized, humid microenvironment. And what thrives in warm, humid, enclosed spaces with zero airflow, pathogenic bacteria and yeast. You think you are keeping things fresh, but you are literally building a tropical greenhouse for dysbiosis.
You really are. And that greenhouse effect extends directly to clothing choices, too.
Yeah.
Wearing tight synthetic clothing like, say, sitting in your gym leggings for 2 hours after a workout severely compromises the vulvar skin barrier.
Oh, yeah, the friction.
Right. The sheer physical friction from tight fabrics, combined with the irritation from shaving or waxing pubic hair, creates these microscopic tears in the tissue. Even something as seemingly harmless as colored or highly fragranced toilet paper can leave behind sensitizing dyes that trigger contact dermatitis every time you wipe.
It is wild how many everyday items are secretly working against you. But dryness isn't just about what you're wearing or what you're applying topically, is it?
No, not at all. It can be entirely systemic. Your internal hydration levels dictate your external moisture. If you are dehydrated overall, your body physically cannot produce adequate natural vaginal secretions.
That makes sense.
But even more surprisingly, the culprit might be sitting in your medicine cabinet right now. Over-the-counter antihistamines and cold medications are designed to dry up the mucous membranes in your sinuses to stop a runny nose.
Right. Wait,
Yeah.
are you saying my cold medicine is drying out my vagina?
Yes, because those drugs are systemic. They do not discriminate between a nose and a vagina. They dry out mucous membranes everywhere in your body. And certain classes of antidepressants have a very similar systemic drying side effect.
Wow, I never would have put that together. And we definitely cannot talk about systemic causes without talking about the master controllers, hormones.
Absolutely. Hormones dictate the entire physical landscape of the vaginal epithelium.
Oh.
Hormonal birth control, like certain daily pills or IUDs, can suppress your natural cycle and alter the local environment. But the most profound structural shift happens as women transition into perimenopause and menopause.
Which is completely natural.
It is, but as estrogen naturally drops, the vaginal tissue physically thins out. It loses its elasticity. The natural secretions dramatically decrease. This is a very specific medical condition known as genitourinary syndrome of menopause, or GSM.
And without estrogen, the pH goes up.
Exactly. The pH naturally creeps upward, making the area incredibly vulnerable to severe dryness, micro tears during intimacy, and recurrent infections.
Okay, so we have covered a lot of ground. If you are listening to this and you are currently dealing with this kind of dryness, whether you accidentally caused it through years of artificial hygiene habits, or it's a side effect of your allergy medication, or it's the natural result of menopausal hormone changes, what do you actually do?
Right, how you fix it.
Yeah. How do you treat it safely when you are standing in the pharmacy aisle looking at 50 different boxes?
So the absolute first step is understand the clinical difference between a moisturizer and a lubricant. People mix them up constantly, and they serve entirely different biological purposes.
Right. Lubricants are purely for short-term relief. You use them during sexual activity to reduce friction in that exact moment. They do not heal the tissue.
Right.
Moisturizers, on the other hand, are a long-term therapy. You use a vaginal moisturizer 2 to 3 times a week, completely independent of sexual activity. Think of it exactly like your nightly facial skincare routine. The goal of a moisturizer is to actually improve the cellular hydration, strength, and elasticity of the vaginal mucosa over time.
But product selection is everything here, because picking the wrong product will actively make the dryness worse.
Okay, so what do we look for?
If you are looking for a vaginal moisturizer, the clinical data strongly supports two specific ingredients, hyaluronic acid and polycarbophil. These are bioadhesive polymers.
Which means they act like tiny sponges that physically stick to the mucin cells on the vaginal wall, holding water in place so the tissue can absorb it naturally.
Exactly. They are clinically shown to restore moisture and help drag that pH back down to a healthy acidic state.
Okay, but if you are reaching for a lubricant for intimacy, there is one massive glowing red flag ingredient you have to check the label for. You must avoid glycerin.
Yes, glycerin is the enemy of hydration here.
Why? One word: osmosis. You probably remember this from high school biology. Water always moves from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration.
Right.
Glycerin is a heavy, concentrated sugar alcohol. When you put glycerin inside the vagina, it creates a concentration gradient. The glycerin actually draws water out of the vaginal tissue to try and dilute itself.
It might feel slippery for a few minutes, but it is actively dehydrating your cells. Furthermore, because glycerin breaks down into sugars, you are essentially feeding any stray yeast in the area, promoting a huge overgrowth.
Ugh, awful. To really drive this home for the listener, we have to talk about osmolality. This is a term you will almost never see on a box, but it dictates whether a product helps you or hurts you.
It's so important. So osmolality is the concentration of dissolved particles in a fluid. It's measured in millismoles per kilogram. Normal, healthy vaginal secretions have an osmolality of 260 to 290 millismoles per kilogram.
Okay, 260 to 290.
Where the danger is that many commercial over-the-counter lubricants and washes have massive osmolality levels, sometimes upwards of 3,000.
Whoa!
Yeah, they are way higher than the natural tissue.
Let me give you an analogy for this. It is like when you eat a massively salty meal and suddenly you are incredibly thirsty because all that salt is pulling the water right out of your cells. Or, actually, more bluntly, it is like pouring salt on a slug.
Oh, that's a visceral image.
It is. But when a product is hyperosmolar, it literally sucks the water out of your vaginal walls to balance the concentration.
That is a perfect, if slightly gross, analogy. It causes severe cellular damage. It strips the epithelial cells right off the wall. This is why the World Health Organization strictly recommends keeping any intimate product under 1,200 millismoles per kilogram to prevent this exact type of cellular damage.
So, sticking to pure water-based or silicone-based products without glycerin, warming agents, dyes, or harsh chemical additives is absolutely vital.
It is.
But it really is a holistic ecosystem. You cannot just spot treat it with a gel and ignore the rest of your body, which is why the lifestyle advice we pulled from these guidelines is just as critical.
Yeah, the basics matter.
Drink 8 to 10 glasses of water daily. If you are dehydrated systemically, you will be dehydrated locally. Ditch the continuous panty liners to stop the greenhouse effect. Switch to breathable, loose cotton underwear. And interestingly, one of the most effective non-pharmacological tools is practicing Kegel exercises.
The mechanical benefit of Kegels is fascinating, really. By intentionally contracting and relaxing the levator ani and pubococcygeus muscles, you are acting like a pump, driving fresh blood flow into the pelvic floor.
Which brings oxygen.
Yes, that increased circulation dramatically enhances tissue oxygenation, which physically plumps and supports the health of the vaginal epithelium. It is a completely free, highly effective way to combat atrophic dryness.
It all comes back to supporting the body's natural design instead of fighting it. So let's look at the big picture of what we've unpacked today. The inside of the body, the vagina, is a brilliantly engineered self-cleaning river system.
Right.
It relies on a highly specific, delicate balance of good bacteria and lactic acid to stay healthy. It absolutely does not need douches, scented wipes, or internal deodorizing sprays. In fact, obsessively using those internal products strips the tissue of its natural defenses, denatures the skin proteins, and creates an artificial state of extreme dryness that invites a never-ending cycle of infections.
And while the inside perfectly manages itself, the outside, the vulva, does require gentle, targeted care.
Because of the sweat and oils.
Exactly. It deals with sweat and oil, so splashing plain water might actually wash away its barrier lipids and cause dehydration. The clinical consensus points to using gentle, low pH, fragrance-free scented cleansers just once a day to protect that delicate tissue, while avoiding the trap of building a microbial greenhouse with daily panty liners or tight synthetic clothing.
And if you are already experiencing dryness, look toward long-term therapies like hyaluronic acid moisturizers to rebuild the tissue, and vigorously check your labels to avoid any lubricant-containing glycerin that will osmotically suck the water out of your cells.
Ultimately, this raises a much larger question about how we fundamentally view our own biology.
I totally agree.
For generations, aggressive marketing has told us that the natural state of the female body is inherently flawed,
Yeah.
that it's something that needs to be scrubbed, sanitized, and heavily perfumed. But the biological goal isn't sterile cleanliness. The goal is microbial harmony. When you respect the microbiome, it protects you in return.
I love that. And I want to leave you with a final, truly mind-blowing concept from our source material that perfectly captures this idea of microbial harmony. We spend so much time scrubbing our external areas with harsh alkaline soaps to meet this impossible societal standard of freshness.
Right.
But the research details a biological process called rectal seeding.
This is so fascinating.
It really is. Basically, good vital bacteria actually originate in the gut, travel out of the anus, physically migrate across the perineum, and move into the vagina to help populate its healthy microbiome. It is a literal physical journey across your skin.
An internal communication network.
Yes. So if we are constantly stripping our external skin with heavily perfumed, harsh soaps, are we literally washing away our body's own communication network? Are we starving our reproductive system of the good bacteria it desperately needs to survive, all just to smell like a synthetic flower for a few hours?
It's a huge thing to consider.
It really is. Something to think about the next time you step into the shower.